Hi everybody, in this review module we are going to be talking about parametric analysis. So from the Cooper et al. 2020 text, parametric analysis is defined as an experiment designed to discover the differential effects of a range of values of an independent variable. So let's back up just a little bit. Quick reminder what our independent variable is. Your IV is the treatment or your intervention or whatever you're manipulating, what you are implementing as a therapist or an experimenter. So then when we talk about the levels of an independent variable, we're talking about intensity or some other aspect of that treatment that varies along a continuum. So for example, we could talk about reinforcement as our independent variable. And so we might vary maybe the delay to reinforcement along a continuum. There's some really cool work looking at effects of different levels of treatment integrity. So treatment integrity is the extent to which an intervention is being implemented like you say that it is. So if you look at 100%, if you're getting 100% treatment integrity, that means that the treatment is being implemented perfectly. But as soon as you start decreasing that percentage, 90%, 80%, you start losing some of your effects of treatment. So for example, you might accidentally not reinforce an alternative appropriate response that you might try to be teaching, or you might accidentally reinforce problem behavior. Those are errors in treatment integrity that tend to bring that percentage down. So some work has looked at varying systematically the percentage of treatment integrity to see how that affects the effectiveness of treatment. And then some people have looked at the effects of reinforcer magnitude. So if you look at maybe different durations of reinforcer access, you could look at, okay, what are the effects of giving 30 seconds access to a reinforcer versus 60 seconds access to a reinforcer, maybe versus 10 minutes access to a reinforcer. So that's another independent variable that can be varied according to a level. So this is an example from Leone et al. 2016. Their independent variable was reinforcement. It was a human operant study with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and they were interested in different delays to reinforcement. So they used arbitrary responses like matching colors and folding towels, and they varied the delay to the delivery of food, tokens, or token exchanges. So this is a table from the study that shows those delay values in seconds. So you can see that we have our independent variable, which is reinforcement, and then our continuum, or the levels that were manipulated, were the delays to reinforcement. And then here is a figure from the paper, David, from the food analysis. Sessions are on the x-axis, and the number of responses is on the y-axis. In the no reinforcement baseline, where responding did not produce reinforcement, saw really low rates of responding, which is unsurprising. Then their next phase was a 0-second delay, which means that responses produced immediate contingent reinforcement. We got 30 responses there. And then they went to a delay of 3 seconds, a delay of 6 seconds, a delay of 10 seconds, and a delay of 20 seconds. And those delays still maintain really high frequencies of responding. But when they got to the 60-second delay, so a response was emitted, and then 60 seconds later, the reinforcer was delivered, that's where you started to see a decrease in the frequency of responding. And then when they increased it to 120 seconds, we saw really low levels comparable to baseline. And then they did a little bit of a reversal back to immediate reinforcer delivery, and recovered those response frequencies. So this shows how varying the delay to reinforcement along that continuum can sustain and then finally decrease response frequencies. So on the task list, they state to be able to differentiate between these 3 types of analyses: parametric, component, and comparative, because they share similarities, but they are different, and you use them for different reasons. And so it's really important not only to be able to describe each in isolation, but then to be able to compare and contrast them across different types. So comparing, how are parametric and component analyses similar? contrasting. How are parametric and component analyses different? So I challenge you when you're studying to prompt yourself to be able to emit that response to not only just definitions, but comparing and contrasting across similar terms. So the parametric analysis, that's the one we just talked about. So from the Cooper et al. Text, does more or less of the intervention work better? So again, you're varying an aspect of the intervention along a continuum. So our different delays. Compared and contrasted to the component analysis, which we did a video on a few weeks ago. How effective is the intervention when various components are added or subtracted? So this is the type of analysis that you do maybe when you have a package intervention and you want to know which aspects of that package are necessary or sufficient for the treatment to be effective. We talked about systematically adding in different components of an intervention, or alternatively, implementing your package and then systematically dropping out aspects of your intervention. And then finally, the comparative analysis. So does one intervention work better than another? This one, the term comparative kind of gives it away a little bit. So you're just comparing the effects of different interventions evaluated separately. So what are the effects of DRO, maybe, for example, versus what are the effects of NCR? So a comparative analysis just compares the effects of separate interventions. So comment with any questions. Hope you learned something.